Mark Hochman, who is scheduled to deliver his session on research impact, assessing the benefits of research. Mark?
Thank you, Dana, and welcome everybody. We can't see you, but we can certainly see from the numbers below that there are quite a few of you there. As Dana said, my name is Mark Hochman. I've been in research management for about 30 years. My interest in research impact comes from several sources. Back in 2012, before impact was on the Australian agenda, the ATN, Australian Technology Network, and a group of 8 universities got together to do a national research impact trial. And I ended up being the program manager for that national trial, which meant developing the guidelines, running the national trial, writing the final report. That really kindled my interest in research impact. And since that time, I've developed and led 3 study tours to the UK for ARMS, one in 2015, another in 2017, another in 2019, where we have visited various policy-making bodies, as well as many universities, to see how they have been handling research impact over there. During the ARC's 2018 engagement and impact exercise in Australia, I also worked with several universities helping develop their case studies and their engagement statements. So our one-day elective on research impact, which will cover 3 days, I think June the 1st, the 8th and the 15th, breaks neatly into 3 sessions. And in the first session, we're going to take a bit of an overview on research impact, defining what it is and what it isn't, because research impact is different things to different organisations. So it's quite important as we prepare impact case studies or write impact statements, that we're aware what the agency is defining impact is. We're then going to look at impact models and pathways. We'll look at how we assess impact, and I'm using the word assess rather than measure, and we'll explain why impact is something that needs to be assessed rather than measured. We'll look at a lot of the myths around research impact, and that will cover the first session. The second session, we're going to move into looking at national impact schemes, and we'll focus primarily on the UK and Australia. We'll look at lessons that have come out of the 2014 Research Excellence Framework exercise in the UK, a little bit at the planning for the 2021 exercise, which is just finished. And we'll also look at the 2018 engagement and impact exercise in Australia. And we want to look at what the overall results were, but also look at what we've learned about how to construct a good case study. And then that will lead us neatly into the third session, which is where we will actually work on some case studies, and we'll look at the role of research managers in the whole research impact agenda. So what can we do about communicating impact, various ways of capturing impact so that it doesn't just become a once-off exercise every several years, but it's part of our ongoing research management system. We'll also look at how we assist researchers, putting together research impact toolkits, and the assessment at the end is generally quite short, 1 or 2 pages, where we look at what would you put into a research impact toolkit. And of course, there'll be lots of discussion and lots of opportunity for questions as we go through. But the focus will be very much on understanding impact and practical ways of demonstrating the impact of our researchers. So I'm going to leave it there, Dana, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them as they come through.
Thank you, Mark. Muchly appreciated. Currently, we have no questions, which means that you've done an excellent job in explaining your elective. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to go on to 2 people. We have the Winter School Elective Securing International Research Funding, which will be delivered by Rado Faletič and Martin Grabert. And I'll pass it on to you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. So a little bit about myself first. My background, some years ago, I started working for a unit called FEAST, which was the Forum for European Australian Science and Technology Cooperation. And the aim of that unit was to be a central point of information about research funding opportunities and research mechanisms for collaboration between Australia and Europe. It was through that initiative that I met Martin, who'll introduce himself shortly. And subsequent to that, I've been involved with various EU funded EU programs and projects on different levels as a contributor, as an administrator, as well as advising some of the EU people on how to better engage international participants. I'll quickly flick to Martin for his bio.
Thanks, Rado. Yes, Martin Grabert here. I am happy that you are, well, quite a number of people, 11 are interested in this course. I think it's great. My background after my wife imported me to Australia, I worked with a group of 8 as the director for international business relations, had the opportunity to gain a lot of insight amongst some of the activities, the impact assessment Mark mentioned. Prior to coming to Australia, I was the director of the COST office. COST stands for Cooperation in Science and Technology. It's a very long-standing international intergovernmental research collaboration scheme, bringing together this time about 300 networks, total 50,000 researchers worldwide, and we were very keen to include Australia in that scheme. So in total, I worked about 20 years in Brussels, made a lot of friends, amongst them Rado, and since here in Australia, we did a lot of EU activities jointly. Thanks very much. Over to Rado for the contents.
Okay, so the title of our workshops, like Mark's, and I think like most of them, is spread over 3 days. The title is Securing International Research Funding. The thrust of what we've designed and what we will present is the thinking that's required to get into international funding schemes and to have a happy experience whilst you're in them. So there will be some, or many examples of specific schemes and some of the specific rules, but the workshop itself is structured about those underlying preconditions, if you like, an understanding of your strategic intent and requirements and vision, understanding some of the major risks that are presented in different parts of the world, and also, probably most importantly, an understanding of cultural differences between your home cultural environment and those of some of our major overseas partners. Now, within that framework of those 3 aspects, we split up over 3 days. Day 1, we'll talk a little bit about strategy and risk, and provide lots of opportunities for discussion where participants will be able to bring in some of their own experiences to add to the wonderful colour of the discussion. The second day, we will very much focus on some cultural aspects and different parts of the world, how they have very, very different cultural appreciations of things like funding rules and ways of collaborating, and how that impacts the success of your international collaborations and the ability for you to engage with international funding schemes. But importantly, we will take a bit of a dive and speak about China and the USA, both separately and together, as is increasingly important to do these days. And then the third day, we'll do a deep dive on the EU funding scheme the Horizon Europe, which is our main bread and butter. But we use that as an example on how to get your head around some of the differences between our domestic schemes and international schemes. And then we'll use that as an opportunity to bring together all of the learning through the module, which will also underpin the assessment exercise at the end. Now, Martin, you wanted to put a little bit of context as well around international funding at the present time.
Thanks, Rado. Yeah, one thing I'd like to mention here in this context is the historic impact cost had on the, well, diminishing, reduction, and in the end, fall of the wall in Europe, because costs integrated scientific communities in the former East a long time before the unification or the combination in the European Union. So we have some experience there how important science collaboration is to avoid major political conflicts. One of the examples we will touch upon. We will also have some external contributors bringing in online or almost online very actual views on the situation in the UK in particular, now on its own, and the situation with the European Union and the US funding in the present environment. So I hope you will join us, and I think we will have an interesting discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rado. Thank you, Martin. Now, next, we're going to move on to Tam Nguyen, who is Advanced Clinical Research Management, our specialist in that area. So, Tam, off to you. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure you can hear me because I had trouble with. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Dana. My name is Tam Nguyen, and I'm the Deputy Director of Research at St. Vincent Hospital in Melbourne. Where I manage all things relating to clinical research, from the business development right through to ethics, governance, some commercialization aspects, and certainly coordinating clinical trials and so on and so forth. So in Australia, we know that with the emergence of the Medical Research Future Fund, the Academic Health Research and Translation Centres, and a number of state-based initiatives in terms of funding, supporting clinical research, clinical trials. There's certainly opportunities for, hospital, university, and medical research institute to work collaboratively in the clinical research space or translation clinical research space. So the topic or the course Advanced Clinical Research Management over the 3 days will cover aspects of challenges in managing multi-site, multi-institutional projects, looking at navigating research ethics, research governance, as well as the consumer community engagement, and building relationship with external funding bodies, not just the government agency, but also farmers, medtech company, and contract research organization. So over the 3 days, it's actually quite good to split over 3 days. What it means is that the material will be sort of covered a bit more in details, and there'll be guest speakers from the industry coming along and really sharing their experience. And then in terms of the post-assessment, post-workshop assessment, there'll be 2 things. The first thing is looking at your institutional clinical research business development plan and strategy. And the other one is a clinical research study checkup list or flow chart that you can create to assist your researcher. So you can either create or modify what's available, but it's a real opportunity to look at, as I mentioned, there's strong interest in clinical research, and there's that opportunity for collaboration between what I call the triangle. Hospitals where we have the patients, university has the researcher, the science, and medical research institute has the translational capability. So looking forward to you joining the course, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Tam. Greatly appreciated. I haven't seen any questions come through so far, but they may come through later, or I may have to send them out to you. Okay, next I'd like to introduce you to Bryony Wakefield. She's our business process improvement expert, and she'll speak to you for a few moments on her elective. Thank you, Bryony.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Bryony Wakefield, and it's great to be here today to talk about the elective on business process improvement in research management. I co-wrote this module, Elective, with my colleague Simon Stewart, who is known to many of you as an expert in transformational change, having worked in that space for over 20 years. A little bit about myself. As mentioned, working in research management is something I'm really excited and enjoy doing. I've been fortunate to be elected onto the ARMS board twice, and I've really valued that experiences and what it's given me in terms of being able to reach out to people on a global scale and learn a lot about research administration and management. I've worked in higher education at a number of different universities in both central and college academic division roles. This experience has given me the approach and understanding of the value and importance of business process improvements. So what we wanted to do in this elective is really take our experiences, that transformational change, process improvement experience that Simon has, my experience in the research management, and bring them together and share our learnings from that. We do this over 2 days, so not the 3 days that some of the other electives do, but 2 exciting days where we focus and learn from each other, and also it's a great networking opportunity. A number of things that we focus on are about ways of working when it comes to business process improvement. So for example, we'll discuss agile approaches, iterative approaches, how we make sure that we actually listen to the researcher and meet researcher needs. One of our big focuses, I should say, is about the value stream map and how you can use that to think through a process that you may be looking at to improve. So key learnings from the day will be looking at your work. If you're in a project team or a business as usual team, what are the ways that you can look at the things that you do, how you work within the team, or if you manage a team, how you can develop them in terms of them working on processes, discussing the different ways that you can bring things together, continually innovate, and think of ways of research management. We also talk about best practices that are taken up around the world and really share learnings. It's also a great networking opportunity. Really hope to see you there and look forward to hearing from you. Bye.
Thank you, Bryony. Muchly appreciated as well. Next, we're going to speak, or you're going to have an opportunity to listen to Moira Clay talk to you about research talent. I'm sure that in today's climate, developing institutional research talent is becoming more and more important. Moira, please.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Dana. Really appreciate it. As Dana said, my name is Moira Clay, and I'm based in Perth, over here in the Wild West. I am a medical researcher by training and practice, but for the past 21 years, I have been doing strategic research management in the health sector. During this time, it has become very clear to me that research talent is one of the most critical resources, for research organisations to achieve their goals. And too often, this resource is not nurtured or maintained. So this is my 6th year leading the development of institutional research talent module. The aim of this module is to enable you as senior research managers to facilitate, support and manage the development of your research talent. It's very much about you rolling your sleeves up and getting to work on developing actionable strategies and tactics to develop research talent that is relevant to you and your organisation. So the module will be conducted over 3 sessions. The first session will address the value of research talent development and the role of the research manager, so your role in this. It will cover how to spot, talent and an overview of the talent scouts that you have at your fingertips. The second session will start to apply a methodology, which is a little bit of a secret. It's called PSTI. So come along to the module to find out what that is. But PSTI will help you develop a research talent development plan. And this will include defining an aim for research talent development, identifying the resources you need, and the strategies or approaches to apply to allocate those resources. And the final session will further develop that plan in an articulation of tactics and effective ways to measure progress towards your desired outcome. This program is highly interactive. We have group discussions, brainstorming, lots of questions. We also have some live case studies. It's certainly the benefit of the online format is that researchers can join the sessions and talk about their particular situations and cases and have opportunity for Q&A. And there will also be a worksheet that you will be working on throughout the 3 sessions to give you something really tangible that you can apply straight away. In terms of the post-module assessment, there's going to be 2 options. You can either develop a case study of a researcher that you're looking to develop their talent at various different stages, or you can develop a business case for a research talent development initiative in your organisation. So thank you, and I invite you to join me for development of institutional research talent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moira. Greatly appreciated. Now that is the last of our presenters for today, and as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, Mark Berlage is in an apology. So what I'm going to do is now just talk to you about some of the overall fundamentals of the Winter School Elective. I'm going to share with you a slide, maybe a couple of slides. Okay. So again, just going over those presenters that you've had an opportunity to meet today. Mark Hochman, Rado Faletič, and Martin Grabert, Tam Nguyen, Bryony, Wakefield, Moira, and finally Mark Berlage, who was an apology. Now, the way the program is structured, we've listened to our membership, and what they've done is they've come back and said to us that, possibly offering the elective over 3 weeks as opposed to all in 1 week would be best. We're very mindful that people are time poor at the moment, and we're all seeing some level of Zoom fatigue. So we wanted to give you an opportunity to stretch that out and possibly better manage your time. The other thing as well is it gives you a chance to work from week to week on what you've learned last week, or maybe a project you have going, or maybe you didn't get up to date or complete all your pre-reading. So with the prospectus, you will have a pre-reading list, as it's mentioned, which actually gets sent out to you when you register for the elective. So you'll see that link to the pre-reading. And where possible, we've tried to break it down into compulsory and elective pre-reading, so you know where to spend your time with that pre-reading. So as I said, over 3 days, with the exception of Bryony Wakefield, who will be delivering hers over 2 days. All sessions start at 11 a.m. AEST or Sydney time and are scheduled for 3 hours. They may not go for 3 hours, they may go for 2.5, they may go for 3. There will be, excuse me, just one moment. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'll just finish this section, and apparently we do have Mark Berlage on, so we'll get him on board briefly. So up to 3 hours, but there'll be natural breaks in the presentation, so you may find that your presenter has stopped a little bit earlier than 3 hours. There's also that wonderful opportunity of networking. So again, maybe on the 3rd day, as Bryony mentioned, you'll have an opportunity to chat amongst yourself and learn from each other and ask questions about how different institutions handle certain things. because we all do it differently and many people are willing to share their strategies. Many of the presenters have spoken about the assessment. I need to be very clear on this. It is an elective or optional assessment. The only people that will require that assessment is those individuals that wish to go forward and use this elective as a credit towards an advanced or higher level accreditation ARMS program. Okay, now I'm going to stop sharing and see if we can get Mark on board. Mark, Berlage, have we got, there we've got you. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was just on the line to Brett's getting the link and login details, and as we all are rushing from one meeting to the next, but so.
We are, okay. I'm going to give you a couple of moments. Please feel free to give us your background, your bio, and talk to the attendees today about what you are delivering in your elective, please.
Yes, thanks very much, Dana, and good to be able to have the chance, everyone, to just explain how I came to develop and design this module, the Managing Complex Strategic Partnerships one. And first of all, I'll apologise for the extremely unprofessional Zoom background I've got here, but I've just grabbed the nearest office that I could grab. So I hope you'll bear with that. I did make the effort of wearing a very, very colourful tie to try and make up for that. But this module is a very timely one, I think, for research management professionals, because there's no doubt that in addition to partnerships and partnerships with external stakeholders of all shapes and sizes being on the increase as part of our research sector's efforts to increase the scale of our work and increase the impact of the work that our academic colleagues are doing. So partnerships as a whole, but then when you step up into the strategic partnerships, which are generally longer duration, more partners, hopefully more money and resources, then we get into the area of complexity. So in this particular module, we start out the pre-task to the module is to look for a case in the learner's own institution, one that they're either working on, have worked on, will work on, or one that their colleagues or their managers think is a really worthwhile one to try and analyse and unpack. And so we ask people to come to that and to pre-read in several areas, and the areas are around complexity theory, engagement and partnerships generally, especially in areas that are known to be complex, and certainly anything to do with health or international health, those to do with private sector partners, those to do partnerships that involve vulnerable communities, and those that are multi-year. So there's a bit of pre-reading. So we start in the module by looking at complexity versus complication. And so there are many complications and things that are complicated, but complicated usually can be ironed out by looking for areas to simplify. And complicated is generally not a good thing. Complex, on the other hand, of course, is more than complicated, and strategic direction is a complicated thing in itself. We're trying to make a play as a research group or research institute into an area and establish a really strong beachhead to work with partners in a sector. So the strategic direction is a very deliberate direction, and the complexity comes in from the dynamism of the relationships between the partners and the different moving parts, not to do with complications in a process or badly designed project management principles, but really dynamic. So the complexity can be a difficult thing, but I position it as being a really helpful thing and a really interesting thing to be able to manage and predict. So we talk about complexity as adaptive behavior, emerging relationships that come about through the development of a project, and then emerging relationships and synergies that occur as a project is being implemented. And of course, organizations change, people change, and needs change. So the whole module is about what are the sorts of things that are dynamic? What are the elements in a partnership that are dynamic and complex? How do they move and work? What can we understand about them, and how can we best predict and perhaps manage those, given that they will be dynamic? So not everything can be managed down to the nth degree. Then we talk about, and I'll just the structure of the module, so understanding complexity, analysing partnerships for partnership scenarios for complexity. So we take the participants' case studies, we break into breakout groups, and we analyse, based on that early discussion, analyse those case studies and come back with what are the complexities and complex elements in those case studies. And we bring them back to the large group to discuss and work through in the light of our earlier discussions. Then what we do is I have several guest speakers, one that will accompany me as a guest presenter, and others that are video recorded for the session. And they are really experienced senior managers from government research agencies, private industry, both small and medium, philanthropic organisations, and also from those that work in Indigenous and vulnerable communities. And they speak from their point of view about how they understand strategic partnerships as a stakeholder external to the university, what sort of complexities they are trying to manage from their point of view, and what they would ideally like from the university or the research institute or research organisation partner in terms of the ways to be able to make the complex partnership work and to maximise the complexities in a good way from that partnership. So there are probably half a dozen short video clips, which we then discuss and analyse within the group to look at it from the stakeholder point of view. And then on the final day, after some core and recommended reading in between the sessions, we start then to develop approaches to managing complex partnerships, and we draw on obviously on the learner or the participant's own experience, reintroduce some of the ideas from the speakers. And what I managed to do from the earlier session, the session we did last year, in collaboration with the participants, was to develop, I wouldn't call it the answer, because I don't think there is necessarily one answer to managing complex strategic partnerships, but we managed to develop a short guide. And that short guide is a living, working document and a piece in progress. And I think every time this module is run, it will be made better by the input from the participants in discussion. But we look at basically the different partnership types, the important considerations in managing the complexity, the important considerations in those partnerships, and the approaches to managing those particular complex partnerships in different categories: international researchers, industry with vested interests, philanthropic partners with a focus on tide investment, and Indigenous and cultural sensitive partners and at-risk communities. So, for example, in the international, we look at policy and legal jurisdiction differences. We look at time zone differences in exchange rates, language and cultural, national security considerations, and so on and so forth. So we kind of pick apart what are the important considerations. So I hope that gives you a little snapshot. And then the optional assessment task is to take the case study that each participant brought to the workshop and to develop a senior management briefing paper. And that senior management briefing paper is intended to go up the line from the course participant to outline what are the considerations in a particular complex strategic partnership that the participant's institution is either thinking of developing, is developing, or is in the middle of, and what are some of the things that we could do that we aren't doing, that we should do to be able to manage those partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. It's wonderful that you actually could join us. So we're almost at the end of this session. I'll do a quick wrap up and give you a little bit more details on where you can find some more information. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. Now, we didn't talk about the price of the electives this year. We've actually been able to fortunately hold it at last year's price. So for members, it's $550. For non-members, it's $650. And those prices are GST inclusive. To find out more information, to find a prospectus on your individual elective, you can go to the ARMS website under professional development. And when you scroll down in the drop down, you'll find the winter school program sitting there. So if you click on it, it'll list all 6 electives that we're offering this winter, as well as the prospectus and a link to register now for that event. As I said earlier, when you register and pay for the module, you'll be sent 2 emails. The first is a tax receipt. The second will be the one that has the link to your pre-reading. So carefully look at the prospectus because it does give a lot of information, including, again, what the optional or elective assessments are. You can still choose to do that elective assessment, get feedback, particularly if you're working on something in-house. Even if you don't plan to use this as credit towards another program, you're still welcome to do that. There is due dates in the prospectus for those electives so that you, for those assessments involved with electives, so that you can now start to plan your time. I think I've pretty well hit on just about everything in a general context. I can't see that there are any questions in the Q&A section. If you do have any questions, please feel free to email me those questions. So I'd like to just bring all the presenters back on, if I may. Can everybody come back? And I know you're there, Martin. So on behalf of ARMS, I'd just like to thank all of you individually for participating today, allowing the presenters, allowing the prospective attendees to meet you, get to know a little bit more about you, and we're looking forward to starting the winter school electives early in June, running through to the middle of August. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Everyone's welcome to get in touch with me at any time. Thank you.